Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. It is our look at Paul Orendorff. He passed away, I believe, was yesterday, and he was 71 years old. I think he had dementia, didn't he, Jack?
Yeah.
But we're going to look at his what Paul Orendorff meant to our insiders, and also what we thought about Paul Orendorff and when we saw him the first time. Rodney, Paul Orendorff, when did you see him the first time?
I believe actually it was in 78. He and Jimmy Snuka were the World Tag Team Champions. They came to Atlanta just for a brief, just for that show, just to introduce them as the new World Tag Team Champions. And Snuka and Orendorff were not your typical wrestlers of that time, because both of them were, built, muscular builds on both of them, just awesome. And really got a lot of attention when they came to Atlanta. The second time around we were in Southeastern Championship Wrestling, the Knoxville part. Georgia Championship Wrestling was running that up there, and Paul Orendorff was there, teaming with Dick Slater and having just awesome matches with Dennis Condrey and David Schultz. Just tremendous athlete. And when you saw Paul, you saw a star. That's exactly what you saw. And you knew when Paul walked in or got to the ring, you were seeing something. And he really was awesome athlete and awesome wrestler.
Jack, Paul Orendorff.
Well, I didn't see Paul live for quite a while. Of course, I knew who he was from the magazine because I was an avid reader. But I didn't see him actually wrestling until he was already in the WWF or WWF. And with all the Hulk Hogan WrestleMania build, all that kind of stuff, that was my first real exposure to actually seeing him wrestle. And I always thought he was fantastic.
Jerry Stubbs is with us, and he said he never had a bad match with Paul Orendorff. And he was spectacular. And there's no doubt when we saw him in Knoxville, he was so good by then, and he hadn't been wrestling long, and he was really good. He had that raw talent and it was one of the greatest in the ring. I don't think there was anybody any better. A lot of people sent some comments in, so let's. Ivory Brandon Jr. said he was a former WCW World Television Champion, World Tag Team Champion with Paul Roma. Rest in peace, Mr. Wonderful, and so many other things. And we'll get to them. But I see that a lot of people have already came on. So let's get to the insiders and see what they've got to say. Good evening, everyone. From Michael. How you doing, Michael?
Rollerson.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Richard is with us. Richard Hood. Hello, fellows. Johnny Krieger. Good evening, guys. Glenn Allen Shelton is with us. And Jerry Stubbs, great professional wrestler, said Paul was one of my favorites. And he was so good at what he did. Chaplain Freddie Rooster Roper. That's a hard name for me to get almost every time. Hey guys, rest in peace, Paul, a true wrestling legend. Jason Mundy with us. Let's see. My other ones have disappeared. So there was some other stuff here. Let me go back.
You need to check it up. You need to pick up because mine's still here.
It finally got here. Glenn Allen Shelton. Rest in peace, Brian Young. Paul was an amazing guy, unbelievable athlete, and one heck of a worker, and so gracious. And I will miss him. Rest in peace, my friend. Mickey Mayfield. My favorite tag team was Orendorff and Snuka back in the Georgia Championship Wrestling days. Paul Orendorff, when he came to Atlanta, it didn't take him long for the fans to know that he was somebody. Even though he came in just a little bit. Now, what he said, and this is what in an interview, Paul Orendorff did an interview, and he said that for 7 months, he trained to be a professional wrestler. He said the first time they was there, Buddy Fuller was there, Bob Roop, Hiro Masuda, Eddie Graham, and he said a couple other guys, but he said they all took 10 minutes with him. And he said Hero was the last guy, and Hero choked him out right there in the deal. He said, but for 7 months they beat him and beat him and beat him. And he said, and I kept on coming back. I kept on learning, and he kept on learning. He said, so one day he said, hey, my father-in-law wants to come and watch me train. And he was going to go against Hiro Matsuda. And he said, what he said was he learned everything they taught him for 7 months. And he said he got in the ring with Hiro Matsuda, and he actually took him down and would not let him up. And he told Hiro, and he said Hiro looked at him and said, "You're ready to be a professional wrestler." Because he said he learned, and he said that's what they wanted you to do as a professional wrestler. They wanted you to be able to take them down, because once you were there, you were ready to be, and they're ready. But he said in the interview they still didn't smarten him up. That he actually went to Memphis, Tennessee, and was still not smartened up when he went to Memphis, because that's where he went after he worked there. And I'm pretty sure they learned a lot. He learned a lot from Jerry Lawler, Jerry Jarrett, and then he from there I think he goes to St. Louis. He stays in St. Louis for just a small time. Then he ends up in the Carolinas, which was his biggest push he ever had. He said he didn't learn a lot from the Crockett's. It was Bill Watts that he learned everything from, and he said that he would give Bill Watts all the credit in the world. Jerry Stubbs, I think we said, never had a bad match with him. And Paul Orendorff didn't have many bad matches.
Yes, and through all of that time with working with Bill Watts, he was in the midst with Southeastern as well.
Yeah,
that's where Jerry Stubbs met him. Was wrestling with him.
And if you remember,
yep,
he was the Matador.
That's right.
And Southeastern Wrestling, Jerry Stubbs was, and he teamed with Paul Orendorff a lot during that time as well. Great deal at Paul Orendorff, the Matador. Tremendous matches with David Schultz and Dennis Condrey. We saw great matches during that point in time, and awesome. It wasn't drawn really well, but it
wasn't because there wasn't great matches going on in the ring. It had other that war in Knoxville caused that problem, but those were some awesome matches, and I can remember the ones in Athens, Tennessee. Oh, it's just tremendous.
Yeah, Paul was tremendous, and he was. You knew when he went to the WWF that he was going to be a star there, because he was so seasoned and he knew what he was doing. Daniel Lang, were you guys in Mid-South when Orendorff used the Freebirds hair cream on Ken Mantell? No. Jack, do you remember this?
I remember. In fact, I just read an article about it today and about how well it got over.
Yeah, it got over very, very well, and the Freebirds eventually used that same hair cream to blind the Junkyard Dog, which was a huge angle back in the day. Michael Barr, rest in peace, Paul. Condolences to his family and friends. Michael, rest in peace, Paul. You were sorely missed, but not forgotten. I think he did so many things in the wrestling business. Paul will never be forgotten. Kevin Penley, was Terry Orndorff his brother or just wrestling brother? No, I believe he was really his brother.
Yeah, it's his real brother.
Is Terry Orndorff still with us?
He's still with us. I believe he lives in Florida still.
He got hurt and he was not able to continue wrestling, but he was really good. He was a really good wrestler. You just felt the bang from James Salton. Yes. Michael Barr asked how Jerry Stubbs is doing. I hope Jerry is doing well. Should have been a world champion. What do you think, Jack? Should he have been the world heavyweight champion?
Honestly, a lot of times we say that guys were so talented that they didn't need the belt, like a Junkyard Dog. Paul is one of those guys who I believe would have made the belt even bigger. He was so talented. I do agree. He's one of those guys that should have had a title run just to make the belt look even bigger than what it already was.
Rodney?
Well, I think we've chronicled that. The Black Scorpion, and for the West part of that, contribution to that, that the Black Scorpion was supposed to be Paul Orndorff, and he was going to be the world champion throughout the whole summer. So he would, if you're right, Glenn, he should have been.
Yeah, and I believe Paul said in an interview that he was supposed to go to the WWF when he was wrestling for the Fullers, Southeastern Championship Wrestling, but he made an agreement with the Fullers, and he was not going to break that agreement and go to the WWF. But he said it probably was, and Ernie Ladd told him this, probably the biggest mistake he ever made was not going at that time, because they believed that he might have been the world heavyweight champion at the time, because that was way before, I think, even Hulk Hogan was on his way there. So Paul could have been champion, but I think Bob Backlund was the champion at the time. And Paul said him and Bob Backlund went way back, because Bob Backlund was one of those guys that was in the ring with him, helping train, and he trained them. And there's also, and I would love to see this, there's a 10 or 15-minute match between Paul Orendorff and Bob Backlund that was a straight wrestling match. It was not a work. It was all a shoot. And they sent it to wrestling camps and amateur wrestling at schools and to colleges, and showed the people what a real athletic amateur wrestling bout was about. I would love to see that. If it's available out there, I would love to see that. Ashley Linderman Jackson said, "Hey, Jack."
Hey, Ashley.
Jason Mundy is with us. Jerry Stubbs said he was good. Michael, Robert Welch. Hello, everyone. I hope your days are going okay. Robert, everything's going good. Glenn Allen Shelton, his feud in Mid-South with Ted DiBiase. I never saw that. I never saw the feud. I know that Paul Orendorff said his first feud in Mid-South Wrestling was with Ernie Ladd. Ernie Ladd was the booker for the majority of that time. So.
How about that?
Greg Zimney, rest in peace. Paul, biggest beat down was in the WL from Rudy Diamond, called him Paula. I remember that. He did. He beat him pretty good. It was pretty good stuff. Robert, they turned him babyface. Did they not turn Paul Orendorff back heel after he turned babyface?
Yeah, he had a couple of turns as babyface up there.
That's what I thought they had done. Never a good thing to turn someone so many times. Paul was explosive and intense talent, one of the best, and everything he did looked good. There was nothing that he did that looked bad. He was solid. Everything he did was solid. Well, that's the way he was taught, though.
Yeah, he was very intense. I was reading an article today where he did an interview, and they were asking him about that, and he said, I was intense because he said, I came there to have the best match of the night. And he said, if you were not in shape and if you were not ready to have that with me, it was a long night for you.
Also, he said that he tried to make sure that he didn't have the same match. That he actually wrote down his matches in a book, and he made sure he didn't have the same match over and over again. He said,
Boy, would I like to get my hands on that.
No kidding.
Jerry, I don't believe Jerry Stubbs is the Robert Fuller. I don't believe that's Robert Fuller. His name is Bob Welch, Robert Welch, but that is not Robert Fuller that we know. But I'm pretty sure he's still on the couch. Rick Brooks. The first time I saw Paul was when Georgia started running Cincinnati, and he faced Buzzsaw in the card August 22nd, 1982, which would almost be at the same time that way before the summer of that. The summer of that would have been with Buzzsaw Tommy Rich started the feud, because Paul Orendorff was part of that feud. Let me show two pictures that Rick shared with us. If I don't hit something and cut this all off, for some reason, I have a problem in these. But here's a picture of Paul Orendorff. This was when he was in Cincinnati. He was wrestling Cincinnati, and he said that was during this card. And here's another picture with him as well. Paul Orendorff, Cincinnati Gardens. That would have been 19. Was it the Cincinnati Gardens? Were they ran?
Well, it might have been at the Coliseum. It might have been at Riverfront.
It might have been, I think it was.
I think they ran both. Seems like.
But tremendous. The Ohio tours were tremendous during that time, and
we never got to go on one.
No, we did not. We was never because they flew there, so we was not going to be. They were going to fly the children. Remember the dressing room fight with Vader? Yes.
I watched his 2005 WWE Hall of Fame induction where Bobby Heenan introduced him, and Bobby mentioned the fight. He said, talked about knocking Vader out. He said, in your flip flops, and he said, just to give you a sound effect of it, it sounded like an old man clapping every time he had hit Vader.
It's sad that Paul had dementia at the end of his life, but 71 years old. He was 71 years old. Curtis Tompkins. He just had something special. I agree with you. Brian Young, when I spoke with Paul, he would never say anything negative about the business or other performers. He truly loved the business and those in it. Michael said Paul laid out Tony Atlas too. Yeah, apparently Tommy Rich, Brian Blair, Tony Atlas, Paul Orendorff was going to a town. Now, this is Tony Atlas's story. He had him some barbecue ribs, and Paul thought they stunk. So he wanted him to throw them out the window. And Tony said these words. He said, I'll throw you out the window before I'll throw my ribs out the window. That started a fight between them. He told Tommy Rich, Paul Orendorff said, pull over. He got out. And they said that Tony said that he actually did a roll. He actually grabbed a hold of him. And Tony Atlas does have a legitimate amateur wrestling background. Paul didn't. Paul was a football player, and he actually took him down and had him held down, and he bit his ear. He was the first Mike Tyson. Paul Orendorff was. He bit his ear, and it was just hanging there. And Tommy, he got back in the car, and Tony said he never even knew that he had bit his ear. He said, I never felt it. And he said, Tommy looked over and said, man, your ear is just laying there. He said, I think we better take you. You don't want your ear to be like that all the time. He said, I think we better take you and get that sewed up. And they went to the hospital and sewed it up. But after that, there was no problems with Tony and Paul Orendorff after that. But yes, they did have a fight, and according to who you talked to. And Tommy Rich was there, and Tommy Rich says really nobody won it. He said it just, Tony had him down, and he bit his ear. He said, I think that's a draw. I'm for sure. He said, I believe that's a draw. Joel Bateman. Hey, everyone. How you doing, Joel? Let's see. Send him to the hospital, too, yes. Adrian Harper Jr., the heel turn on Hogan, the clothesline. I always remember that. That was some good stuff. Paul Orendorff was so good. Now, I believe, did he not get hurt during this point in time as well? Did he not hurt his shoulder during this?
Yeah, he had some, it was in the gym. He had a lifting, something happened there with an accident, and he could not afford to take time off like the doctors told him to let the injury heal, and eventually led to the bicep atrophy that we all familiar with, which eventually, long after he retired, but he lost a lot of use in his right side all the way down into his leg from all that.
Wow.
But he did not want to give up his spot that he had against Hulk Hogan, and you can't blame him there. That was his time. Joel Bateman, Paul Orendorff, a good worker. I would even go further to say a great worker, fantastic worker. Yep. Paul was believable, and even when he went to WCW, again was tremendous while he was there. Curtis. Iron Sheik said he was very tough, knocked Vader down. Yes. There's two stories of that. Vader has a story. If you go watch he has a story that he knocked. And Kevin Sullivan kind of had the same story. So,
well, Kevin was more worried about his weight being announced, right? There was a lot more people verified Paul's version.
Yes, that's what I heard. Yes. Mickey Mayfield, Hellman Piper were hilarious together. Not only they're good together, but I don't believe that Hulkamania, Hulk Hogan, would have got as over as he got without Paul Orndorff, Cowboy Bob Orton, and Rowdy Roddy Piper. I think it took those three people with Hogan to get him over.
Yep.
And Piper was the great heel to his. If you didn't have it, people wouldn't have cared nothing about it. But they hated Roddy Piper, Paul Orndorff, Cowboy Bob Orton so much that Hulk Hogan just doing anything to him. Because look at the stuff Piper did to people. He beat that one guy up. I can't remember his name. He beat him up. Piper's pit got Roddy Piper a lot of heat.
Yeah.
By the way, so and I believe didn't Piper manage Paul Orndorff at the beginning?
Yes.
He didn't really.
In fact, Piper didn't wrestle in the beginning. He was doing the Piper's Pit. He was wrestling in the arenas, but not on television. And he was managing Dr. D, David Schultz, and Paul Orndorff at the beginning. And Bob Orton Jr. was the bodyguard.
Yes, this is true. Had no idea that Jerry Stubbs is the Matador tag team with Paul. I don't know that they tag team.
Michael Barr, you better hope there's not a pop quiz later.
Jay Smith, what a great heel Paul was in the WWF Rest Easy legend. Oh, he was so good. And you just wanted that. But you loved to hate him. That was the thing. That was the thing with Paul. You didn't just hate him. He wasn't the kind, you just want to turn the TV off. You just loved to hate him. He was that good at what he did. He was no doubt was great. James William Lawrence III. Hello, gentlemen. Sorry I'm late. You will send your fine directly to Jack, in care of Jack at his email address. Richard Hood, Paul was a great football player too, who signed with the New Orleans Saints. Paul said in his interview that he was only making $16,000 a year playing football, but you had incentives if you did a lot of tackles. If you did, you got incentives, everything you did. And he said he actually made more money than that because I think he was maybe one of the somebody that ran the most yards while he was playing football. So he did make more than that, but he said he got tired of football and he didn't want to do it anymore. And he was just sitting for about 2 years. He wasn't doing anything. And he said he was laying on the floor at the father-in-law's house and wrestling came on. And he said he didn't want to watch it. He didn't think it was that good, but he kept on watching and he said, I think I can do that. And his father-in-law said, well, I know somebody that knows Eddie Graham. And it was actually one of Eddie Graham's bankers. And that's how Paul Orndorff got to be.
And if I did my math right, I believe he was 26 years old before he started as a professional wrestler. So
yeah.
He wasn't a young guy, but that's not old by any means, but
evidently he was a great football player though.
Yeah.
He must have been very good. He just didn't want to do it anymore. He wanted to be home with his family is what he said. So his skit would probably be more like it wouldn't. In the WWF showing overweight people. Oh, okay. Now I see what how to work in the gym is still the best. Yes. I watched that today. There was a lady and she was working out and he was trying to tell her how to work out. That was tremendous stuff. Have y'all seen this?
Been a year, several years, but yeah, I've seen that.
Oh, some good stuff. Brian Young, Paul told me he was offered a couple different title runs, including WWF was going back and forth with Hogan, but he climbed the strap. Said he also turned down a big IC title run. Not sure if that was 100% true, but it is what he told me. It's a possibility.
Yeah.
I think Paul was one of them people. If he gave you his word that he was going to wrestle for you, he no matter what, he would stick by what he said, and that's you have to say good stuff about him in that respect. Thomas Alexander, I just never liked him, nothing personal. I just didn't get into him. Man, I don't know what you was watching there, Thomas. One of the greatest, and I'm talking about Southeastern when we saw him in Southeastern. Then we saw him in Georgia Championship Wrestling. Then saw tapes of him in Mid-South Wrestling. Then he went to the WWF and WCW. I never saw Paul Orendorff ever have a bad match, and he was always nice. Always. I don't know that there was ever a time that Paul Orendorff was a bad guy. Thomas is with us. Paul feuded in Memphis with Lawler very early in his career, and I'm pretty sure he learned a lot from Jerry Lawler. Yeah. There's no doubt and so Jerry Lawler, Jerry. I think Bill Dundee was there at the time, so he had to learn a lot from those guys. One of the best pile drivers in the business.
Absolutely.
Yes. The only person I thought that a better pile driver than him was Bruiser Bob Sweetan. That was the only guy. Now, there's a possibility Paul learned the pile driver from Bruiser Bob Sweetan because he worked a lot of. Hey, the dog is barking. Is the dog upset?
I'm got the pile over here.
Another gentleman, believable heel. Yes, he was. Not only was he a believable heel, but when he turned babyface, he was a very believable babyface. Nothing that he did was not believable. Everything he did looked good, and his interviews was tremendous. You wanted to just reach through and slap him. No doubt about that. Great interviews with Okerlund. They fought to keep a straight face. Yeah, Paul. They did do that. Scott Dotson. I remember as an 11-year-old kid how shocked I was when Paul turned on Hogan in 1986. But you know what? That drew so big. That drew houses everywhere they went. There was not a place that didn't sell out with Paul Orendorff and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, you gotta see the stadium show with Hulk Hogan and Paul Orendorff. The stadium's packed with that match, and it was just right after this incident that you're talking about.
Wasn't Paul in Southeastern about the time Joe LeDuc was there? I would say so. I would because Joe came in and out of Southeastern wrestling, so I would say he was probably there. Robert Welch, Bob Welch, he said, yes, I was only in the ring one time, but it was a part of Invasion of the Fans. Rita Cantrell saw Paul at Snook in some great matches in the Carolinas.
Yeah, there's a great match with Ole and Gene against Paul Orendorff and Snuka on YouTube. Check it out. Really good match.
And Paul Orendorff said he learned a lot from Jimmy Snuka. Learned a lot of timing and stuff from Jimmy Snuka because Jimmy was good. Jimmy had wrestled. He had been wrestling for several years before this. So, and George Scott absolutely loved Jimmy Snuka. Hey, from Calhoun, I missed watching you guys. Paul, we're always, you can always watch us after the fact. We're always on YouTube. A ton of videos on YouTube, so you can always watch his in the replay. On his trunks, he had OP Wonder. Was it supposed to be a PO?
It was supposed to be PO, and whoever did the trunks for him got it backwards, and he just liked it. He thought that was kind of an inside rib and kept it.
And Schultz and Cadre called him the outpatient for that.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you, those matches, people just don't understand how good those matches were. I think Paul Orendorff teamed with Jerry Stubbs as a Matador. I think maybe Dick Slater.
Mm-hmm.
And had some great matches with them. And Paul, it wasn't Paul Diamond. It was Don Diamond. Wasn't it the guy that teamed with him as well a lot? Don Diamond, great wrestler as well. I don't know whatever happened to him, but he was a tremendous wrestler. Joel Makeman is doing well. Charlie Platt is with us. By the way, Charlie Platt's going to be with us July the 26th. Him and Les Thatcher are going to be on the same exact show. Me, Rodney, and Jack is going to take the night off and just let them do what they do. best. And great to work with Owen Cameron, super talented in the ring. Rest in peace. Thank you, Charlie. Daniel Lang, Orendorf versus Dr. Death was one of the few bright spots on Herb Abrams' UWF. I don't think that I ever watched Herb's shows. I don't think so.
I saw a few.
Curtis Thompson, Frankie Williams was the guy he beat up on the pit. Yes,
that was
Williams.
awesome. And Williams was good in that.
Yes,
he was really good in that.
I see that Missy.
That's Missy.
Is doing well.
You think about the first appearance of Paul Orendorff in the WWF with Piper as his manager. He knew exactly how to present himself as a star, because the first place he went was Olivia Walker to make him those beautiful robes. She made all of them for Paul Orendorff, and he looked like a star when he walked out there.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Paul helped Hogan get over. I agree with you, Joe. I agree that Paul helped Hogan get over. There's no doubt. Andy McDaniel. By the way, if you have not watched the series of interviews, they're available on YouTube. Very good interview. And
Yes.
if you like Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, they are tremendous interviews with Andy, and they're on our YouTube channel. I believe that I have got them all on a playlist. It'll say Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling with Andy McDaniel. So go check all those out. You'll enjoy them. Enjoy Paul's time in Mid-Atlantic when he was teaming with Snuka. Great memories of their feud with Ole and Gene. And he said he didn't learn a lot, but you'd almost had to learn a little bit with Ole and Gene. Maybe he only learned how to get beat up there. I mean, there's a possibility. Rick Brooks. I really can't explain why, but I've always been a huge fan of the heels. Jack, I believe you were too, wasn't you?
Oh, yes. Even as a fan who understood the business back in the day, I love the heel. I saw the potential there, and I never mind being a babyface myself, but I loved being a heel. I just loved it.
Without a good heel, without heat, there's no money. People pay to see the heel. There was a little difference with Hogan. Hogan could just be on the card and sell out. There was a difference between Hogan. That was the difference between Hogan and Dusty Rhodes and Tommy Rich and those guys. Dusty Rhodes, Tommy Rich, they almost had to have a heel that people hated so they could get beat up. Hulk Hogan was a little different. All they had to do is say he was going to be there and it would sell out. There was just a little bit of difference at the beginning. Now, as the end went and he was going against I can't remember some of the guys. Earthquake and those guys. Yes. No. He didn't have he was not over enough at that point. He'd been there.
No, it was too long. And that actually they done him in when he dropped the belt to Ultimate Warrior.
Yep.
That was a terrible, terrible idea because Ultimate Warrior just didn't, let's just be honest, didn't have it as we're talking about. Orendorff would have been a better.
Yes, Orendorff should have been but Orendorff was already gone by that time, right?
Sure, yeah.
He was already in WCW, maybe. Heenan, Rude, Orendorff, great heels. Yes, they were. I don't think that. Bobby Heenan was great at everything he did, unless he's talking about Kurt Hennig. Rude, I don't think was as good as Paul Orendorff in the ring. I think Paul Orendorff wrestling was a whole lot better. The only thing Rude knew, he did know how to get heat. He did know how to do that. He called the people in Tennessee some bad names now we were there. Some horrible things. I'm not even going to repeat that. I'll have to tell the supporters what he called people on the mic in Chattanooga. Orendorff didn't play in the NFL. He played one season in the WFL for the Jacksonville team. Michael Barr. Oh, okay, Jack. I had no idea Jerry Stubbs and Paul Orendorff tag team together. Yes, they did. They, it wasn't every week type, because Paul would team with different people, Dick Slater and different people during that time. And I've got programs of Paul Orendorff there, and because I bought all the programs that was there at the time. Jim Barnett actually bought Southeastern Championship Wrestling. They sent our father Ron West there to be the guy that took care of the towns and made sure that Jim Barnett made his money back. Dennis Mitchell. Paul will be missed. I remember his run in Southeastern, and a great run, by the way. If some of that stuff can be seen, you can see some of it. There's not a lot of Southeastern Championship Wrestling, but there is some things you can go see with Paul. I've got him on tape somewhere. If I could ever get a VCR again hooked up to be able to watch him. Paul was a better heel, Richard Hood said. And he was. He had that arrogance down pretty good, and was not an arrogant person, by the way. So he was a very down-to-earth person. I liked it when he beat up Leon Wyatt Van Vader.
I think there was a collective.
Yeah, I believe he might not have been the very nicest guy. Vader wasn't, but I never had any problems with him. But I know that some people did. When I was a kid, my mother would always say, "Tell me when Mr. Wonderful is going to take off his robe." I told him that story and asked me if she's still alive. When I said she was, he had me call him next time I was at her place so he could thank her.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That is. Paul was a good guy.
Yeah.
I don't think that anybody can say anything, and did what he was asked to do. The match in Toronto with Hogan, huge draw, Jason.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about on YouTube. It's an awesome match as well. The crowd is on fire in that match.
I didn't fact check numbers, but I read one article today. It might have been Sports Illustrated. I don't know, but they were talking about how Paul Orndorff's feud with Hogan drew as much money as anybody that Hogan ever stepped in the ring with. So that's significant.
And I believe that people thought that Paul Orndorff could beat Hulk Hogan, become the champion.
Yep.
I think they said at any moment Paul Orndorff was going to be the world heavyweight champion. And I think that's the reason it drew. They never knew when Paul would win the belt. Always liked Paul as a heel, not much as a face. Robert Ewing, Joel Bateman. Paul Orndorff had the it factor. Yes.
Certainly did.
He did. He was so good. Greg and Victoria Hodge. Good evening, guys. Good evening to you, Greg and Victoria. Kevin Penley. Will we resume the top 100 next week? Yes, we will. By the way, my number 93 is Frank Spaceman Hickey. Oh, I don't even know who. I do know who my 93 was.
Yeah.
I won't tell anybody at this point, but I do know who my 93 was. But yes, we will return. We just wanted to do a special show on Paul Orndorff because he meant a lot to the wrestling business. You know, many people loved Paul Orndorff. Would love y'all see Paul and Terry Bradshaw have a conversation. I bet that would have been a great conversation. They really would have. Well, I just hit something over here again. I've just learned I don't know what I'm doing. Dennis Mitchell, does Charlie Platt have any good stories on Paul Orndorff? I am pretty sure he does, and we will ask him. July, that is Monday, July 26th. That is a Monday, right? Monday, July 26th. I'm pretty sure that's the last Monday.
That is, yes, 26th.
We will ask him, and we will also ask Les Thatcher. Les Thatcher will have he'll have a lot of Paul Orndorff stories as well. So we will ask him on July the 26th. Orndorff was more athletic. Oh yeah, he was. Oh man, he was good, Charles. There's no doubt he was so good. Heel pro wrestlers actually more fan friendly than baby faces, in my opinion. Yeah.
Apparently, he has some kind of run in with Austin Idol.
I was just fixing to say that.
Or Wendell Coolidge.
That too.
Love Wendell. By the way, love Wendell. Great guy.
With Wendell, it was all according to your gender.
This is true. This is true. Jay Smith, did he? I think we already said that, didn't he? He didn't play in the NFL, but he was drafted by the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
Jerry Stubbs, tell them, Charlie. Warren Shortest.
Yes.
Hello from Wisconsin. Curtis said when he was in GCW, the title was like made for him. Yes, national heavyweight champion. If you remember, Larry Zbyszko bought the national heavyweight championship when Killer Tim Brooks was going against Paul Orendorff. Larry Zbyszko helped him win the title, then he bought it. And I think that led to a tournament for the national heavyweight championship because I think Paul Orendorff might have left.
He did.
Right.
Jerry Stubbs said, Charlie, you always have stories. Yes, Charlie is good at telling some stories, no doubt. Daniel Lang, any idea why they did the storyline where he gave up the national title to chase the world title? I believe he was on his way out. I don't know that I never made any sense to me. I have watched that. Never made any sense. Because prior to that, if you were the Georgia heavyweight champion, and when the champion came to town, you got to wrestle him. And then you would give up the title. Made no sense. Made no sense whatsoever. Did that make sense to you guys when you was watching that?
No.
It just made, whoever was booking was smoking the wacky tobacco or something. What was going on there?
Tail roll, wacky tobacco.
Charlie has been around wrestling for quite a few years. Yes, he has. Larry Morgan. I love the way he reinvented as an old school hill and Smoky Mountain wrestling. Oh, he did some good stuff in Smoky Mountain. He really did do some great stuff. Jay Smith. To this day, I say Paul's foot touched first in the blue steel cage match versus Hogan on Saturday night's main event, 1986. I'm with you. So I think we should all protest and say that Hogan was not the world heavyweight champion for all those years afterwards. I think we should say Paul Orendorff was, and that he should be the honorary WWF world heavyweight champion. Great match. That was so good. So well put together. Jesse Vendera agrees, too, that Paul's foot touched first in that cage match against Hogan. Yes, he does. I remember him saying, no, he touched first. I'll never forget that. That was some good stuff. Joel Bateman said, my 93, you will see. Must be Rodney's. He may or may not be on the list. Amy Robert T-shirt. Hello, wrestling fan. How is everyone doing? Joel Bateman. Never met else tonight. Well, you haven't missed nothing.
What he said, wait a second. He said, and I can tell that he's never met Austin Idol because he called him Mr.
Let me just say this. If you ever saw somebody, you loved him, you watched him, you thought he was tremendous, and then you met him, and you thought,
he was all right, but there were some days he was just shoo.
Wrestling 2, by the way, was not one of those people. We watched Wrestling 2, loved Wrestling 2, met Wrestling 2, and he was as good as a person as he was. And Tommy Rich was a good guy. Dusty Rhodes was a good person. Stan Hansen, they were all pretty decent people. There were just a few during that point in time.
It wasn't like Austin Idol was bad every time, but there was some nights, boy. Those some nights made up for all the rest. Let me tell you.
Paul Orendorff had the best pile driver in wrestling. Yes, yep. Elwood Sandridge. Is Paul in the Hall of Fame? I believe he is, isn't he?
He is in WWE Hall of Fame 2005. He's in the George Tragos Luthez Professional Hall of Fame class of 2017. And he's also in the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. And I can't remember what year he went in, but it was just a few years ago.
So he is in that. Dr. Philbo Grice is with us. Also, Stuart Kemp. Jack, before we leave tonight, you got any final comments about Paul Orendorff?
You know, Paul meant a lot of things to a lot of people. When somebody passes now with social media, when you see a few mentions, that they meant a lot. My social media, my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook has just been flooded with people talking about Paul. I saw one guy have something negative to say about him, and I cut him out of my life, by the way. Uh, but overwhelmingly, people love Paul, whether there's fans or people inside the business. You talk about a man who garnered respect in and out of the ring. Paul Orendorff was that guy. He was everything that professional wrestling should be. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to have met him a couple of times. I wish that I could have really gotten to the point where I called him a friend, just never had the opportunity to be with him that much. But I highly respected him. He was extremely nice. And the times that I saw him, he was helping young guys, not just telling them old war stories, but telling them what they need to do in the ring to get better. And that is what we all should be trying to do inside the business, is guide the next generation. And if there's anything that Paul left that we should take from, is that we should learn to be as professional as he was.
Yes, I agree with you on that. Daniel Lang said he remembers Orendorff and the Armstrong against Rose, Condrey, and Saito were tough matches. Yes, some good stuff. Paul Ante said, I was at the CNC Stadium show. Good deal. Brian Young, I asked Paul once if anyone scared him or anyone he was afraid of. His answer, no, I was pretty tough. Nobody scared me. Well, Harley was kind of scared. Harley was scared to many people. Harley could take care of himself, no doubt. What day did the Youngblood die? Yeah, I think I just read that about Chris Youngblood. Is it Chris Youngblood?
Thursday, Friday last week.
I just learned about it this morning. I didn't even know he had passed away. But was it Chris or Mark?
Chris, 55 years old, so still very young.
Yeah, that's bad. I hate to hear that. Back to the road, Miss Walker May. Beautiful robes for Orendorff, Valentine Flair. Y2 just had plain robes. He had a couple that wasn't.
Yeah, he had some pretty fancy ones. He preferred that polyester one that he actually wore most of the time. I guess it was just easier to carry.
Yeah. He has a beautiful robes, though.
Yeah,
he did, and they were heavy. Man, they were heavy. Many times I went and picked it up for him because he didn't just. He said, "Hey, when I'm gonna wear my robe out there," he said, "Can you come and get that and then take it back to the dressing room and hang it up for me?" One time, I didn't hang Michael Hayes' robe up one time, and somebody tied it in knots. I don't know who it was, but I got blamed for it. I believe it was Jimmy Powell. Nah, it could have been somebody else. Somebody else might have slipped in there and did it. But I got blamed for it for years after that. So, Paul Orendorff is in the Hall of Fame. He said, absolutely yes. Brian Young, well said, Jack. Rest in peace. Wasn't he a trainer? Yes, he was a trainer for WCW. Yes, he was for a long time. Hey, man, Jack. The stuff that you said about Paul Orendorff, and but anyway, we've got to go. If you are a supporter, we're on the way to talk WWE top 50 tag teams. Very interesting.
Boy, this is well, it's something we're talking about. I won't say it's great. I'll just leave it at that.
But we are going to talk about that tonight, and also
we're actually flipping coins or drawing straws to see which one goes on a rant first. But join us.
So if you're a supporter, we're on our way there right now. Thank everybody for joining us as we pay tribute to Paul Orendorff, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orendorff. He will certainly be missed in professional wrestling. He certainly made an impact on me as a young child. Watching wrestling in 1978, 79 in Southeastern Championship Wrestling. And from then on, there was nothing that Paul Orendorff did that I didn't think was great for the wrestling business. He was a great person for the business, and there'll probably be never another one like Paul Orendorff. We will see everyone next week as we continue our look at the top 100 wrestlers, number 93. And Rodney, any final comments before we leave?
Well, I think you said it already there. Out of all the things that Paul Orendorff did, he will always be remembered as Mr. Wonderful. And that was the culmination of years and years of working to come to that point. And we'll always remember him as Mr. Wonderful.
Yes. We'll see everybody next week, and we'll see the supporters here in about 2 minutes. Thank you all so much, and we'll see everyone next week.